I stood in our sunlit kitchen as Sophia told me she was pregnant. At that moment, my world stopped, and then joy burst through me like fireworks. We hugged, we laughed, and I felt like the happiest man alive. But 2 months later, I overheard a phone call that exposed Sophia's betrayal. She had not only cheated on me but was also pregnant with another man's child. My world came crashing down at that moment. Welcome to the Butterfly Tumblr Radio channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. My laptop screen flickered as I finished a complex piece of code. Another successful project finished ahead of schedule. I leaned back in my ergonomic chair, stretching my arms above my head and relishing the accomplishment of a job well done. "Alex, come quickly," Sophia's voice rang out from downstairs. A mix of excitement and urgency that brought me to my feet. I bounded down the stairs in our Austin home, 2 at a time. "What is it? Is everything okay?" I discovered her in our sun-drenched kitchen, literally vibrating with energy. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun and her eyes sparkled with an intensity not seen before. "More than 5, she said, grasping my hands. "Alex, I am pregnant." For a brief moment, the entire world stopped. Then joy burst through me like fireworks. "Are you serious? We are having a baby." Sophia nodded, tears well up in her eyes. "I just took the test. 2 lines are clear." As day, I scooped her up in my arms and spun us around the kitchen. Our laughter echoed off of the granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. When I put her down, I keyed her face with my hands, taking in every detail of the moment. "I love you so much," I said, my voice full of emotion. "You have made me the happiest man alive." Sophia's smile was radiant. "We're going to become parents. Alex, can you believe? It's incredible." I said, my mind is already racing ahead. "We'll need to child-proof the house. Begin looking at CRI's ribs. Maybe even consider a larger space." She laughed, putting a finger to my lips. "Slow down, Mr. Software Engineer. We have plenty of time to plan right now. Let's just enjoy the moment." I nodded and took a deep breath. "You're correct. As always. How about we celebrate? I'll call Dylan to see if he can get us a table at Archie's tonight. Sushi and champagne." Sophia's eyes lit up. "I suppose I'll stick to virgin cocktails for now. Anything for the mother of my child," I said, pulling out my phone and dialing Dylan, our friend and the owner of Austin's most popular restaurant. I couldn't stop smiling. Life was perfect. My career was taking off. We had a lovely home and now we're expecting a baby. I felt a rush of love and protectiveness as I looked at Sophia, who was carelessly running her hand over her still flat stomach. "Hey Dylan," I said when he picked up. "Is there any chance you can squeeze in your favorite power couple? Tonight we've got some exciting news to share." After confirming our reservation, I turned back to Sophia. "It's all set for 800. Should we invite anybody else? Your sister maybe?" Sophia shakes her head. "Let us keep it. It's just us tonight. We can inform everyone else tomorrow." I pulled her closer. She inhaled the familiar scent of her shampoo. "That sounds perfect. I can't wait to shout it from the rooftops." However, Alex Thompson, soon to be father, she giggled. Then her expression became serious. "Alex promised me something." Anything, I spoke, meeting her gaze. "Promise me. We'll always be so happy that nothing can come between us." I gently kissed her forehead. "I promise you and the baby on my entire world. Nothing could possibly change that." As we stood in our sunlit kitchen, arms wrapped around each other, I believed those words. I had no idea how quickly my promise would be put to the test. 2 months flew by in a whirlwind of doctor appointments, late-night cravings, and endless browsing of baby name websites. I threw myself into work, determined to provide an even brighter future for our growing family. The team was on the verge of making a breakthrough with our new AI algorithm, So I found myself working later and later. One Tuesday evening I decided to surprise Sophia by arriving home early. I went to her favorite florist and picked up a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. As I drove into our driveway, I noticed the lights were turned on in the living room perfect. I thought she was still awake. I let myself in quietly, planning to sneak up on her, but as I walked into the foyer, I heard Sophia's voice coming from the living room. Something about her tone made me pause. Yes, I understand. She was speaking quietly and urgently. But you need to understand this changes everything. I froze, the flowers clutched and forgotten in my hand. Who was she speaking to? Of course. I love you, is Sophia continued, and my world shifted on its axis. I would not tell you that it is your child, unless it was true. But he's a better provider, and I need him now. The blood roared in my ears. Your child, better provider. The pieces clicked into place with sickening precision. We can't keep seeing each other. Sophia promised. Please give me some time to figure this out. We must exercise caution at this time. I'm not sure how long I stood there paralyzed. Long enough to hear Sophia's whisper call. I love you too. Talk soon. I managed to slip back out the front door without making any noise. I got into my car and just drove. My mind was a jumble of shock, betrayal, and mounting rage. How could she accomplish this? How long was this going on? I found myself parked at a scenic overlook, gazing out at the twinkling lights of Austin spread below. The sunflower bouquet Wilton was forgotten on the passenger seat. I took out my phone and stared at the lock screen, a photo of Sophia and me from our last vacation. Both of us were smiling at the camera. My finger hovered over her contact information. I should confront her, demand answers, but my cold, calculating brain held me back. If I tipped my hand now, she might try to hide her tracks. No, I had to be smart about this. I took a deep breath, attempting to calm the storm of emotions raging within me. Think. Alex, what are your next steps? The first thing I did was call my office and leave a message with my assistant. Sarah, something has come up. I need to take a personal day tomorrow. Reschedule my meetings, please. Next, I pulled up my contacts and scrolled until I found Ethan Reed. We've been friends since college and he'd gone into private investigation work. If anyone could help me get to the bottom of this, it was Ethan. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. Alex, this is a surprise. Everything okay, buddy? I cleared my throat, willing my voice to steady. Hey Ethan. No, everything is definitely not okay. I need your help. Ma'am, discreetly. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was all business. What do you need? I need you to look into my wife. I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I think she's having an affair and the baby might not be mine. Jesus. Alex. Ethan said softly, I'm very sorry. Are you certain about this? I recounted what I'd overheard, my grip tightening on the steering wheel as I relived the moment. Okay, Ethan said when I finished. I'll start digging first thing tomorrow. We'll get to the bottom of this. I promise. Thanks, Ethan. I said I appreciate it. After hanging up, I sat there for a long time watching the city lights blur through the tears. I finally allowed myself to shed. Eventually I started the car and headed to a nearby hotel. There was no way I could go home and face Sophia tonight. Not without giving everything away. As I lay in the sterile hotel bed, sleep eluding me, I replayed every moment of our relationship in my mind. Had there been signs I'd missed? How long had she been lying to me? One thing was certain, the happy life I thought we had was nothing but an illusion, and I was going to make damn sure I came out on top when it all came. Crashing down the harsh light of morning did nothing to soften the blow of reality. I woke up in the unfamiliar hotel room, my head pounding from a night of fitful sleep and racing thoughts for a brief, blissful moment. I thought it might have all been a bad dream. Then the memories came crashing back and the pain hit me like a physical force. I reached for my phone half expecting a flood of worried messages from Sophia. There was only one text. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. The casual light twisted the knife even deeper. I dragged myself out of bed and into the shower, letting the hot water wash over me. As I tried to clear my head by the time I stepped out, a plan was starting to form. I quickly dressed in yesterday's clothes and went out. My first stop was a coffee shop. I knew Sophia never went to where. I nursed a strong black coffee. I took out my laptop and began researching divorce laws in Texas. What I discovered made me feel satisfied. Texas was a fault-based divorce state, so infidelity could have a significant impact on the outcome of proceedings. I was so focused on my research that I nearly missed Ethan Alex's call. He spoke without preamble. I have some preliminary information for you. Can you meet me in my office in an hour? I will be there. I promised I am already packing up my belongings. Ethan's office was located in a nondescript downtown building. As I rode the elevator up, I prepared myself for what I might discover. Ethan was waiting for me. When the doors opened, his usual easygoing demeanor was replaced by one of concern. "Come on in," he said, leading me into his personal office. After the door was closed, he turned to face me. "Alex, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It is bad." I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly weakening. "How bad is it?" Ethan sat across from me and slid a folder across the desk. "I put a rush on this. I called in some favors. Sophia has been seeing Carter Stone for at least 6 months. He's a local real estate mogul with a history of unethical business practices." I flipped open the folder as I looked at the photos inside. My stomach churned as I saw Sophia and a tall, handsome man entering a high-end hotel. Then the two of them holding hands across the table at a private restaurant. A close-up shot of them kissing in a parked car. "There's more," Ethan spoke gently. I dug into their finances. "You may be unaware that large transfers have occurred from Stone's accounts to Sophia's personal account." The implication hit me like a punch in the stomach. "She's been planning for this." I said it in a hollow voice. "Using me for money, while planning her escape with this Stone guy." Ethan nodded. "It appears that way. I'm sorry. Man, I know this is difficult to hear." I closed the folder, unable to face the evidence of my wife's betrayal any longer. "What should I do now, Ethan?" He replied, "That depends on what you want. If you are considering divorce, and I wouldn't blame you if you were here, you are in a strong position. Texas takes infidels seriously during divorce proceedings. With this evidence, you could possibly walk away with the majority of the assets." I nodded slowly. My mind is already racing ahead. "I need a lawyer. A good one." Ethan did not hesitate. "I know just the person. Megan Foster. She is a shark in the courtroom, specializes in high-profile divorce cases." "Would you like me to call her?" I asked. Then a thought struck me. "Ethan, how about the baby?" His expression softened. "Given the timeline, it's unlikely that it's yours, Alex." "I apologize, but we can request a paternity test as part of the proceedings." I buried my face in my palms. I'm overwhelmed by Sophia's betrayal. Everything I thought I knew about my life and future had been a lie. When I looked up, there was a new determination in my voice. "Set up a meeting with Megan. I want to move quickly on this. Sophia believes she can play me for a fool. She doesn't know who she's dealing with." Ethan nodded before reaching for his phone. "I will make it happen. And Alex, for what it's worth, I believe you're making the right decision. You deserve better than this." As I exited Ethan's office, my mind was clearer than it had been since hearing that damning phone call. The shock and pain remained, but were channeled into something else: determination. Sophia and her lover believed they had the upper hand, but they were about to learn a hard lesson. I may have been blind to our deception previously, but now my eyes were wide open and I was going to make damn sure that when the dust settled, I came out on top. Let the games begin. I met Ethan in a quiet cafe downtown. He slid into the booth across from me. "How are you holding up, Alex?" Ethan asked. I shrugged and stirred my untouched coffee. "There. What do you have for me?" Ethan leaned forward and lowered his voice. "I've been following Sophia for the past week. Her routine is fairly consistent. She has had 3 meetings with men at the Driscoll Hotel. I have photos." He pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. My hand shook slightly when I opened it. "That's him," I inquired, gazing at the image of Sophia embracing a tall, well-dressed man. Ethan nodded. Carter Stone, a real estate mogul known for cutting corners. I dug into his background. "Alex, this guy has skeletons in his closet." I flipped through more photos, each of which was a knife to my heart. "Tell me everything." Stone has a history of questionable deals. City officials are suspected of being bribed, but nothing has ever stuck. He's slippery. "How long has it been going on?" Ethan hesitated. "Based on my research, at least 6 months, possibly longer." I slammed my fist on the table, making nearby patrons jump. 6 months. We've only known about the pregnancy for 2 months. "Alex, I understand how difficult this is, but you must maintain your composure." Ethan spoke softly and steadily. "We have solid evidence of the affair. Now we need to delve deeper. I can access phone records and bank statements. We will create an airtight case." I took a deep breath, attempting to calm myself. "You're correct. What are our next steps?" "I know someone who can clone Sophia's phone. We will be able to track her calls and texts in real time. It's not technically legal, but do it." I interrupted. "I don't mind what it takes. I want to learn on everything." Ethan nodded and took out a small recording device. "I also think we should wire your home. Observe any conversations they may have there." "Isn't this a violation of privacy laws?" I asked. "Technically, yes, but you are the homeowner, Alex. It is a gray area. The question is, how far are you willing to go?" I considered Sophia's betrayal, the lies and the possibility of raising another man's child. "Whatever it takes. Ethan, I want them to pay for what they've done." Ethan gave me a long look before nodding. "All right. I will set everything up. But Alex promised me you wouldn't confront Sophia yet. We must gather as much evidence as possible before tipping our hand." "I promise," I said with a cold voice. "I'll play the dutiful husband for a little longer. Allow them to dig their own graves." As we left the cafe, Ethan put his hand on my shoulder. "We'll get through it, buddy. Simply stay strong." I nodded. My mind is already racing with revenge plots. Sophia and Damon had no idea what was going to happen. A week later, I found myself in Megan Foster's sleek downtown office. Ethan had recommended a divorce attorney. Her reputation preceded her a shark in the courtroom, known for her ruthless efficiency. Megan examined the evidence file that Ethan had compiled. Her expression is unreadable. She finally looked up at me. "Well, Mr. Thompson, you have certainly been thorough," she said, her voice crisp. "This is quite the case you have brought me." I leaned forward in my chair. "Can you help me?" Megan's lips formed a predatory smile. "Oh, I can do more than just help. With the evidence, we can bury both your wife and her lover." "I am listening," I said. Megan stood pacing behind her desk. "Texas is a fort-based divorce state. Infidelity can have a significant impact on asset division. Based on the evidence you've gathered, we can argue for a significantly larger share in your favor and the child." I inquired, my voice tight. Megan's expression softened slightly. "We will, of course, request a paternity test, but regardless of the outcome, we can use the affair to refute any child support claims." "Shouldn't the child be yours?" I nodded, a weight lifted from my shoulders. What is our first move? We filed for divorce immediately, citing adultery. Megan said, sitting back down. But we haven't shown our full hand yet. We'll begin with just enough evidence to establish grounds for divorce. Why not make use of everything we have? I asked. Megan smiled again, and I was reminded of a shark circling prey strategy. Mr. Thompson, we'd like to see how they react if they try to fight it. That's when we pull out the big guns. And if they don't fight, we will negotiate from a position of strength. Either way, you win. I thought about this for a moment. How about Sophia's lover Stone? Can we go after him too? Megan's eyes gleamed. You're thinking like a shark, Mr. Thompson. We can't name him in the divorce proceedings, but we can definitely make his life difficult. Your investigator discovered some shady business practices. I have some contacts who would be extremely interested in that information. For the first time in weeks, I felt hopeful. Do it. I want the file as soon as possible. Megan nodded already, reaching for her phone. I'll have the paperwork completed today. We can file first thing in the morning. But Alex, she added, her tone suddenly serious, there is no turning back once we have started this process. Are you absolutely certain this is what you want? I considered the life I thought I had. My future had been stolen from me. I'm sure I said Sophia made her decision. Now it's time for her to face the consequences. Megan nodded, her eyes shone with satisfaction. Then let us get to work. By the end, Sophia will have no idea what hit her. As I exited Megan's office, I felt a strange combination of emotions. Part of me mourned the life I was leaving behind, but a larger portion, the part that had been betrayed and humiliated, was prepared for war. Sophia believed she could play me for a fool. She was about to realize how wrong she was. The following few weeks were a blur of legal maneuvers and secret meetings. I played the oblivious husband to perfection, gathering more evidence and plotting my revenge. The idea came to me during a late-night strategy session with Ethan. We must expose them publicly. I said this while pacing Ethan's living room, not just in court, but with everyone they know. Ethan glanced up from his laptop, eyebrows raised. That's quite brutal. Alex, are you sure about this? I nodded. My mind raced. Sophia's birthday is coming up. We always throw her a large party. This year will be one she never forgets. Over the next hour, I outlined my strategy. Ethan listened. His expression was a combination of admiration and concern. It's risky, he said after I finished. If it backfires, it may harm our case. That is why we must make it airtight. I responded. Can you obtain video evidence? Something undeniable. Ethan nodded slowly. I have a guy who works in surveillance technology. We could install hidden cameras in the hotel rooms they use to do it. I said, whatever the cost. The day of the party came. I had invited all of our friends, family, and even a few of Sophia's clients. Damian Stone appeared on the guest list, ostensibly as a business associate. As guests started to arrive, I put on a happy face and acted like Alex, my adoring husband. This is incredible, Sophia exclaimed as she looked around the beautifully decorated living room. You didn't have to go through all this trouble. I kissed her cheek, resisting the urge to withdraw anything for you. Sweetheart, you deserved it. As the party got into full swing, I caught Ethan's eye across the room. He gave me a subtle nod. It was time, everyone. Could I get your attention, please? I called out while tapping a spoon against my champagne glass. The room became quiet. As you all know, we're here to celebrate my lovely wife's birthday, I said, raising my glass to Sophia. She smiled, completely unaware of what was coming. Sophia, you have brought so much joy into my life. Despite my inner turmoil, I kept my voice steady. I thought I'd create a slideshow of our journey together. I dimmed the lights and turned on the projector. At first it displayed innocent photos of our life together. Sophia laughed at several of the earlier shots. Then the images changed. Suddenly, the screen filled with photos of Sophia and Damon entering hotel rooms kissing in his car. The room became deathly silent. What's this? Sophia Stead hammered her face. Paler. I turned to face her. My voice called this. Sophia represents the truth. Discover the truth about your affair with Carter Stone. The truth about the child you are carrying. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Carter was edging closer to the door when I noticed him. Oh no, in the flashlight. Damon. I spoke, my voice echoing throughout the stunned crowd. You can't slink away. You are as much a part of the story as she is. I turned back to Sophia, who was shaking her head in denial. Alex, I can explain. She began saying. I cut off. I have heard enough of your lies. I filed for divorce. Sophia, it is over. The room erupted in chaos. Friends and family members shouted questions. Some people moved to comfort Sophia. Others glared at her with disgust. Through it all, I stood firm, watching as Sophia's life, built on lies, crumbled around her. It was not pretty. It was not kind. But in that moment it felt like justice. The silence after my announcement was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in our crowded living room. The dam suddenly broke. How could you? Sophia, her sister Maria, cried out. We trusted you. Sophia's face was ashy. Her gaze darted frantically around the room. It is not. I did not save your breath. I interrupted, my voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The evidence speaks for itself. Damon, who had been edging towards the door, was abruptly stopped by Ethan going somewhere. Mr. Stone, Ethan asked. In a deceptively casual tone, Carter straightened his jacket, hoping to maintain some dignity. This is a private matter. I think it's best that I leave. Oh, I do not think so, I replied, turning to face him. You are as much a part of this as Sophia. Why don't you let everyone know about your plans for my company? Damon's eyes widened with surprise. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. No, allow me to refresh your memory. You and Sophia were not simply planning to end my marriage. You were planning to take over my company, weren't you? Gasps and murmurs echoed throughout the crowd. Sophia stumbled forwards. You're reaching out to me. Alex, please allow me to explain. I took a step back, avoiding her touch. What exactly are you explaining? Sophia. How have you been lying to me for months, how the child you are carrying may not even be mine? Sophia's face streamed with tears. I apologize, she whispered. I never intended for it to go this far, but it did. I replied, my voice harsh, and now you both must face the consequences. One of Sophia's clients, a well-known socialite, forced her way to the front of the crowd. Sophia, is this true? Have you lied to all of us? Sophia's eyes revealed her desperation. Charlotte, I can explain. It isn't, as it seems. Charlotte shook her head with disgust. Sadie, consider our contract terminated. I can't believe I entrusted you with my events. As words spread around the room, more of Sophia's clients approached her. Shocked and disappointed, I watched as a carefully constructed world collapsed around her. Damon, seeing the writing on the wall, tried again to leave. This time, my father stopped him. Not so fast, young man. Dad said, his voice filled with barely suppressed rage. I believe you owe my son an explanation. Carter looked around frantically, realizing he had been cornered. This is all a misunderstanding, he stammered. Sophia and we never intended to harm anyone. Save it for the lawyers, I replied coldly. I'm sure they'll be very interested in hearing about your business practices. Damien bribes, insider trading, It is all coming out now. Damon's face lost its color. You can't prove anything, he said, but his tone lacked conviction. Do you want to bet? I replied, nodding at Ethan. My friend took out his phone and played a recorded conversation between Damon and a city official about payoffs for building permits. The room erupted again in chaos. Friends and family members shouted questions and accusations. Sophia sank into the couch, head in her hands. Damon appeared to be hoping that the floor would open up and swallow him whole. I stood firm, observing the truth. I discovered journey through the lies and deception. It was not pretty, and part of me despised that it had come to this. But a larger portion, the part that had been betrayed and humiliated, felt satisfaction as the party disintegrated around us, with guests leaving in stunned groups whispering to one another. I caught Ethan's eye from across the room. He gave me a subtle nod and a silent question, "You okay?" I nodded and exhaled slowly. The trap had been sprung. The truth was out. Now it was time for the real battle to begin. The weeks following Sophia's birthday party were a blur of legal meetings and court appearances. I sat across from Megan in her office going over our strategy for the upcoming hearing. Sophia's lawyer filed a counterclaim. Megan explained, sliding a document across her desk. "They are claiming emotional abuse." I scoffed and picked up the newspaper. "That is ridiculous." I never laid a hand on her. Megan leaned forward, her expression. "Serious emotional abuse doesn't require physical violence. Alex, they're painting you as controlling and manipulative. But this is not true." I protested. "I know," Megan replied, "but we need to be prepared. How do you want to handle this?" I thought for a moment, then asked, "What are our options?" Megan ticked off points on her fingers. "We can fight it head on. Present character witnesses to vouch for your behavior. Or we can redirect. Focus on Sophia's INF, Fidelity, and Damon's shady business practices. Let's redirect." I decided I don't want to give their claims any credibility. Megan nodded approvingly. "Good choice now for the paternity test." I tensed at her words. "How about it?" "The court has ordered one." Megan explained. "We need to schedule it soon." I slumped into my chair. The reality of the situation struck me anew. And if it's clear, I'm not the father. Megan's voice softened slightly. "Then we use that to refute any claims for child support." "But Alex, you should be prepared for either outcome." I nodded, my throat tightening. "I understand. Let's get this over with." The day of the hearing arrived and I saw Sophia for the first time since the party. She sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, accompanied by her lawyer and Damien. The sight of them together made my blood boil. Sophia's lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit, stood up to address the judge. "My client, Your Honor, has been the target of a deliberate campaign of emotional abuse and public humiliation." I gritted my teeth, but Megan put a soothing hand on my arm. "Let him speak." She whispered, "We will have our turn." It was Megan's turn to speak. She was a force of nature, Your Honor. The defense and his allegations of abuse are all a smokescreen designed to divert attention away from the real issues. My client, Mr. Thompson, is the true victim in this situation. She went on to lay out her case, presenting evidence of Sophia's affair and Damon's unethical business practices. I studied Sophia's expression as she spoke. She alternated between appearing defiant and terrified. The judge listened attentively, occasionally asking questions after both sides had presented their cases. He leaned back in his chair. "This is a complex situation," he stated. "I'm going to order a paternity test for the unborn child. We will reconvene once we have the results. In the meantime, I'm issuing a temporary order to freeze all shared assets. Neither party may dispose of or transfer property or funds without the court's approval." As we exited the courtroom, I caught Sophia's attention for a moment. I caught a glimpse of the woman I thought I'd married. Then her indifferent mask slipped back into place and she turned away outside. Megan turned to face me. That went as well as we could have expected. Now we're waiting for the paternity test. I nodded. I feel drained. How do you think our chances are? Megan smiled confidently. Given the evidence we have, I'd say they're very good. But remember, Alex, this is only the beginning. Stay strong. As I watched Sophia and Carter drive away, I braced myself for the battles ahead. It was far from over the day the paternity test arrived, bringing with it a wave of emotions I wasn't expecting. I sat in the medical center's sterile waiting room, nervously bouncing my leg. A nurse called my name, leading me to a small examination room. Mr. Thompson, we're ready for you. As I rolled up my sleeve for the blood draw, the door opened and Sophia walked in. Our eyes met, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. Alex, I cut her off. I just don't. The nurse looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Mrs. Thompson, if you could take a seat. We'll need a sample from you as well. Sophia sat in the chair next to me, her hand unconsciously moving to her slightly swollen belly. The sight made my heart clench. How do you feel? I asked. Despite myself, Sophia looked surprised at the question. I'm okay. Morning sickness is finally easing up. I nodded, not trusting myself to say more. We sat in awkward silence as the nurse took our samples. The results should be ready in a few days. The nurse informed us the court will be notified directly. As we left the room, Sophia turned to me. Alex, could we please talk? I hesitated, torn between my rage and the recollection of my love for her. I do not think that is a good idea. Sophia, I know I harmed you. She pushed on. But there's so much you don't get. I laughed bitterly. What is to be understood? You cheated on me, lied to me, and attempted to acquire my company. It seems pretty clear to me. Sophia's eyes filled up with tears. Was not supposed to be like this. He promised me things. He said he could make all of our dreams come true. That justifies betraying me. I inquired in my voice hard. Sophia stared down, unable to meet my gaze. Nothing justifies what I did. I apologize, Alex, more than you will ever know. For a brief moment I considered softening. I then remembered the overheard phone call, the photographs of her and Damien, the expression on her face when she was discovered at the party. Save your apologies, I replied coldly. We'll let the courts decide what comes next. I turned and walked away, leaving Sophia standing alone in the hallway. While I drove home, my emotions clashed within me. A part of me wanted to believe Sophia's remorse was genuine, but a larger part, the betrayed and humiliated part of me, refused to let down my guard again. The next few days were among the longest of my life. I threw myself into work, hoping to distract myself from the weight. Finally, Megan called Alex. The results are in. Can you come into my office? My heart was racing as I drove to Megan's office. This was it as now or never. Megan was waiting for me, a manila envelope on her desk. Are you ready? She asked, gently. I nodded, not trusting my own voice. Megan opened the envelope and scanned its contents. Her expression revealed nothing. Alex, she said, glancing at me, the test reveals that you are not the biological father of Sophia's child. Despite my suspicions, the words hit me like a physical blow, even though the timeline suggested it was likely hearing. The confirmation was devastating. I apologize, Megan said softly. I understand this is not the news you were hoping for. I took a shaky breath and tried to process the information. What will happen now? Megan's professionalism returned. We can now use this to our advantage, with proof of Sophie's infidelity and the fact that the child isn't yours. We have a strong case for a fair asset division, and we can fight any attempt she makes for spousal support. I nodded, feeling numb. Do what you think is best, Megan. I trust you. I left Megan's office. My phone vibrated with a text message from Sophia. I learned about the results. Could we please talk? I stared at the message for a while before deleting it without responding. There was nothing more to say. In the days following the paternity test results, I scoured the internet for any and all damning information about Carter Stone. Ethan's investigation had unearthed a treasure trove of dirt and I was determined to use it. I met Sarah, a journalist friend from college, in a quiet coffee shop downtown. Thank you for meeting me. I spoke as she slid into the booth across from me. Sarah smiled. Her reporter's instincts were clearly piqued. Of course, your message seemed intriguing. What is the big story you have for me? I pushed the flash drive across the table. Everything you need to know about Carter Stone's illegal business activities, bribery, insider trading, you name it. Sarah's eyes widened as she connected the drive to her laptop and scanned the files. Alex, this is explosive. Where did you get all of this? I have my sources. I spoke vaguely. The question is, can you use it? Sarah nodded slowly, still scrolling through the documents. Oh, I can use that. All right. This is pizza material. But Alex, she looked up at me with a serious expression. Are you certain about this? Once this is made public, there is no going back. I met her gaze steadily. I'm sure it's time the truth was revealed. Sarah nodded, unplugging the drive and placing it in her bag. All right. Allow me a few days to verify everything and put the story together. This is going to make a splash. Alex, that is what I'm counting on. I responded. Sarah's expose was published on the front page of the Austin American-Statesman 3 days later. As promised, the effect was immediate and devastating. Damon's company stocked precipitously, and within hours there were calls for a formal investigation. I was in Megan's office when the news broke. She looked up from her computer with a mixture of admiration and concern on her face. Alex, have you had anything to do with this? I shrugged, trying to appear innocent. I may have shared some information with a journalist friend. Megan shakes her head, but I could tell she was impressed. It will certainly help our case. Sophia will have a difficult time claiming that Damon can now provide for her and the baby. As if on cue, my phone rang with a call from Sophia. Against my better judgment, I responded, how could you? Sophia's voice was a mix of anger and desperation. Do you have any idea what you did? I exposed the truth. I responded calmly. Something you should have done long ago. Damien is ruined. Sophia said he is currently being investigated by the police. What should I do now? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That's no longer my problem. Sophia, you made your choice. Now you have to deal with the consequences. Alex, please. Her voice cracked. I know I've hurt you, but I need your help for the sake of the baby. If nothing else, I closed my eyes, bracing myself against the pull of her plea. I am sorry, Isabella, but you are on your own now. I hung up, feeling both satisfied and sad. It was over. I'd won, but it felt hollow. Somehow, Megan looked at me with understanding eyes. Alex, you did what you needed to do. Not second-guess yourself now. I nodded, pushing away the conflicting emotions. You're correct. What are our next steps? Megan smiled. Now it's back to business. Now that Damien is gone, we can take advantage of the situation. Sophia has no legs to stand on. We will push for a quick resolution. Get everything you are entitled to, plus more. As I left Megan's office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in months I felt like there was a future beyond this mess. Following Damien's downfall and the ongoing divorce proceedings, I felt increasingly isolated. My friends and family were supportive, but they didn't fully understand what I was going through. That was when I got an unexpected message on LinkedIn and, hey, stranger, I hadn't seen you in a long time. I heard you've been going through a rough time. Want to grab a coffee and catch up, Leela Ross? We were close in college but drifted apart after graduation. I hesitated for a moment before typing a response. Hello, Leela. Coffee sounds fantastic. What about tomorrow at Houndstethon, North Lamar? The next day, I arrived early at the coffee shop, my nerves jangling. As Leela entered, I was struck by how little she had changed. Same warm smile and confident stride. Alex Thompson, she said, pulling me into a hug. It's been far too long. We settled into a corner table with our drinks and Leela gave me a sympathetic look. So you want to tell me what has been going on? I saw some of it on the news, but I took a deep breath and began speaking. To my surprise, I started and couldn't stop. I told her everything about Sophia's betrayal, including the divorce and the paternity test. Leela listened without pausing, her expression a mix of shock and compassion. After I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Alex, I'm sorry for what you've been through. It is unimaginable. I shrugged, attempting to downplay the emotion that threatened to overwhelm me. I am dealing with it one day at a time. You know, Leela nodded. You don't have to deal with it alone anymore. I'm available if you need anything, even just someone to vent to. For the first time in months, I felt a genuine smile forming on my lips. Thank you, Leela. This means a lot. We spent the next couple of hours catching up. Leela told me about her successful tech startup and I found myself genuinely interested in something other than my own problems. For the first time in ages, as we were leaving, Leela turned to face me. Hello. My company is hosting a charity gala next week. Why aren't you coming?
It might be beneficial for you to get out and meet new people.
I paused. I do not know, Leela. I'm not sure I'm prepared for that kind of situation. She playfully bumped my shoulder. Come on. It will be fun. And if it isn't, we can always sneak out early to get some burgers. Her enthusiasm was contagious. All right. You have convinced me. I will be there. I actually looked forward to the gala that night. Leela greeted me at the door, stunning, in a sleek, black dress. Thompson, you clean up nicely, she said with a wink. As we chatted with the other guests, I was surprised that I enjoyed the conversation. Leela introduced me to several of her colleagues and I became involved in discussions about emerging technology trends and market predictions. Later, as we paused on the balcony, Leela turned to face me. So was this as bad as you expected? I laughed, realizing that it was the first time I had done so in weeks. No, it was not bad at all. Thank you for dragging me out, Leela. I needed it. She smiled, her eyes twinkling under the moonlight. Anytime, Alex. That is what friends are for. As I looked at her, something stirred inside me, a warmth I had thought I'd never feel again. It was not love, not yet, but it was a possibility, and that was enough for now. Just when I thought things had settled down, life throws another curveball my way. I was at the office late one night, catching up on work that I had neglected during the divorce proceedings. When my phone rang with an unknown number, I cautiously responded, hello. A gruff voice replied. Is this Alex Thompson? Yes, who is this? Someone who believes you should know the truth. The voice responded, about your wife and Carter Stone. My heart raced. What exactly are you talking about? Check your inbox. I have sent you some files, Mr. Thompson. Be careful who you trust. This goes deeper than you realize. The line went dead. My hands was shaking. I checked my mail on my computer. A message from an anonymous address appeared at the top of my inbox. I clicked it. My breath caught as I scanned the contents. Spreadsheets, emails, and meeting minutes all point to the same shocking conclusion. Sophia and Carter had been plotting to take over my company for several months. I called Ethan immediately. I need you to verify some information for me. I explained, sending him the files, that I needed it done quietly. Ethan whistled quietly as he examined the documents. "This is huge, Alex," I replied. "If it's true, I need you to find out. How quickly can you accomplish it?" "Give me 48 hours, Max requested. "I'll call you as soon as I know anything." The following 2 days were agonizing. I threw myself into work, attempting to divert my attention away from the unexpected news. Finally, Ethan called. "It's all true, Alex," he declared. Without hesitation, I triple-checked everything. "Sophia and Carter planned a hostile takeover of your company. They planned to use the shares. Sophia would use the divorce as a foothold." I sank into my seat stunned. "I can't believe this. I knew she had betrayed me. But this, what are you planning to do?" Ethan inquired, and I paused for a moment before saying, "I'm going to end this once and for all." I called Megan and told her what I had discovered. She remained silent for a long time after I finished. "Alex, this changes everything," she said. "Finally, with this evidence, we can not only ensure that your company remains intact, but we may also be able to file charges for corporate espionage." "Do it," I replied firmly. "No more playing nice." The following morning I entered the courtroom for our final hearing with a renewed sense of purpose. Sophia and her lawyer were already present. Looking smug, they clearly believed they still held the upper hand. Megan stood as the judge entered. "Before we go any further, Your Honor, new evidence has emerged, dramatically altering the nature of this case." Sophia's attorney jumped to his feet. "Objection. Any new evidence should have been disclosed before this hearing." The judge gave Megan a stern look. "Miss Foster, please explain yourself." Megan nodded respectfully. "Your Honor, this evidence was only discovered 48 hours ago. We have been working hard to ensure its authenticity before presenting it to the court." She went on to lay out the evidence of Sophia and Damon's plot. As she spoke, I noticed Sophia's face drained of color, and she whispered frantically to her lawyer. When Megan finished, the courtroom went silent. The judge observed Sophia and her lawyer. "Do you have a response to these allegations?" Sophia's lawyer stammered, clearly surprised. "Your Honor, we need time to review this new information." The judge nodded solemnly. "Given the gravity of these allegations, I'm inclined to agree. We will take a 1-hour recess. I recommend that you make good use of that time, Counselor." As we exited the courtroom, Sophia grabbed my arm. "Alex, please wait. Please allow me to explain." I turned to face her, my voice cold. "What exactly are you explaining, Sophia?" "How you plan to steal both my company and my dignity." Tears filled her eyes. "It was not supposed to be like this." Carter spoke. "You promised to save it." I cut her off. "I'm done hearing your lies." An hour later, we were back in court. Isabel's lawyer appeared defeated as he addressed the judge. "In light of this new evidence, Your Honor, my client wishes to withdraw her claims and agree to Mr. Thompson's original divorce settlement terms." The judge nodded before turning to face me. "Mr. Thompson, would you like to press charges in connection with the attempted corporate takeover?" I looked at Sophia and saw the fear in her eyes for a brief moment. I was tempted, but then I remembered how much energy I'd already expended on revenge. "No, Your Honor," I said. "I just want this to be over." The judge nodded in approval. "Very good. Given the circumstances, I will grant the divorce on the grounds of adultery. Mr. Thompson will keep full ownership of his company and all its assets. Mrs. Thompson waives her right to spousal support." As the gavel fell, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. It was over. Really truly over. Outside the courthouse, Darren was waiting for me. She has been a constant source of support over the last few weeks. "How did it go?" she asked. Her face was etched with concern. I managed a small smile. "It's finished. I won." If any of this is considered winning. Leela squeezed my hand. Hey, you survived. That is what matters. So what happens now? I took a deep breath looking at the Austin skyline. Now I'm rebuilding my company. My life and everything. Leela smiled and linked her arm with mine. You don't have to do this alone. I am with you. Every step of the way we walked away from the courthouse, I had a glimmer of hope for the future. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in months, I was excited for the journey. Sophia and Damon's betrayal had almost destroyed me, but in the end it had strengthened me. I had survived. I had triumphed. And now, with new allies by my side, I was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was certain: the best retaliation was not destruction. It was thriving, and that is precisely what I intended to do. Here is the next story. I could not believe my eyes. All of my belongings were on the doorstep. I fell to my knees. He found out. Hey, read it. This is my first time posting here, but I've been a Reddit user for quite some time. It's been a difficult few weeks and I never imagined I'd be here sharing my story. I've seen a lot of stories on Reddit, but I never imagined I'd be writing one too. I guess I'm still in shock and trying to make sense of what's happened. As a result, I'm turning to Reddit to rant, while also seeking advice on how to proceed. In general, James 33 and Ife Tito have been together for 7 years, married for 3 and have a 5-year-old son, whom I will refer to as Alex for privacy reasons. We had met in college and it seemed like a fairy tale at first. He was charming, intelligent, and made me feel like the most important person in the world. Our relationship had its ups and downs, just like any other, but I always believed we'd weather the storm. As I previously stated, things were going really well between me and James at first, and even before I met Evan. James worked in a physically demanding job and earned a lot of money. His uncle owns the company, so the job was already lined up for him before we graduated. Following the birth of our son, Alex, I became a stay-home mom. I decided to stay home to care for him. It made sense, given James's high-paying job and the cost of childcare. At first it was fantastic. I loved spending time with Alex, watching him grow and being present for all of his firsts, his first smile, his first steps. These are his first words. These were memories I treasured deeply. I was grateful to be present for these milestones, especially since I knew many parents missed out due to work commitments. However, after several years as a stay-at-home mom, the initial joy faded. I began to feel isolated and disconnected from the world beyond our home. While I adored Alex and enjoyed being his primary caregiver, the daily routine became rather monotonous. Every day was a recurrent cycle of feedings, diaper changes, and attempting to get a few moments of rest. James worked long hours, frequently leaving early in the morning and returning home late at night. He was doing his best to provide for us and I appreciated his efforts. But this meant that I was alone with Alex for the majority of the day. When James returned home, he was exhausted. We had little time for ourselves as a couple and our relationship began to suffer. I tried to tell James how I was feeling, but it was difficult. He was always exhausted and stressed from work, and I did not want to burden him with my problems. When we did talk, he tried to be supportive, suggesting that I join some mom groups or find a hobby to keep me busy. I appreciated his suggestions, but they weren't sufficient. The loneliness was overwhelming. One day I decided to attend a local playgroup for parents and children. I hoped it would be an opportunity to meet other mothers and possibly make some friends. I craved adult conversation and the company of others who were in the same situation. That is where I met Evan. He was one of the few dads who came on a regular basis and we got along well right away. Evan was easy to talk to and seemed to understand everything I was going through. He would listen without passing judgment, and our conversations made me feel seen and heard in a way I hadn't in a long time. It was refreshing to speak with someone who understood the challenges and frustrations of being a stay-at-home parent. We share stories about our children, laugh about trivial matters, and support one another. At first it was just friendly conversations during playgroup, but we soon began texting and meeting outside of the group. Evan made me laugh and reminded me of who I was before becoming a mother. I became increasingly excited about our conversations. I tried to convince myself that I had no feelings for Evan and I only saw him as a friend after all. It was comforting to know that someone understood my situation so well. Evan was also a stay-at-home parent, which contributed significantly to their connection. We were both going through the same daily routines and struggles, which formed a strong bond between us. Initially, our relationship was strictly platonic. We texted outside of playgroup meetings, but we did not cross any boundaries. We'd hang out, confide in each other, and talk about what was bothering us. Evan would vent his frustrations at home, particularly those involving his wife. They were having issues in the bedroom and he felt neglected and unwanted. I'd complain about how monotonous and repetitive motherhood was, which I hadn't expected. This happened while I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I discussed my feelings of isolation and the strain it was putting on my marriage with James. I discussed how James's long work hours made me feel lonely and unsupported. Evan was a great listener and he provided a shoulder to lean on when I needed it most. As our friendship deepened, I guess the lines between friendship and something more just began to blur. The more time we spent together, the more I found myself relying on Evan for emotional support. He was always there when I needed to talk and he made me feel valued and appreciated. I started to realize that my feelings for Evan were growing stronger, but I pushed those thoughts aside. I told myself that it was just the loneliness and the need for companionship that made me feel this way. But the more I tried to suppress my feelings, the more they intensified. Evan was going through a rough patch in his marriage and I felt like I was the only one who truly understood him. Our conversations became more personal and we began to confide in each other about our deepest fears and insecurities. We talked about our dreams, our hopes for the future, and the things that made us happy. One afternoon we decided to meet up at a coffee shop while our kids were at playgroup. It was a welcome break from our usual routine and we enjoyed the chance to talk without the constant interruption from our children. As we sat there sipping our coffee and just talking, I realized just how much I had come to depend on Evan's company. He made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. That day marked a turning point in our relationship. The connection between us grew stronger and we started spending more time together outside of the playgroup. We would meet up for lunch, take our kids to the park, and even go for walks in the evening when our spouses were busy. The more time we spent together, the more I found myself drawn to Evan. He was kind, understanding, and always knew how to make me laugh. Eventually, our friendship crossed the line into something more. It started with a simple touch, a brush of the hand, long hugs, but that quickly escalated into kissing. And before I knew it, we were having sex. I knew what we were doing was wrong, but I could not stop myself. Evan made me feel wanted and desirable and I craved his attention. The guilt over our affair weighed heavily on me. I felt like I was living to live, pretending everything was fine at home and sneaking around with Evan. I knew I was betraying James and the thought of hurting him sickened me. However, I couldn't bring myself to end things with Evan. He had become my escape, my lifeline, and I couldn't let go. As our affair progressed, I grew increasingly distant from James. He began to notice changes in me, such as late-night texts and a sudden need to leave the house without explanation. He confronted me several times asking if there was anyone else, but I consistently denied it. I couldn't bear the thought of him finding out the truth. So even though I knew what I was doing was wrong and saw the red flags, I refused to end my relationship with Evan. We had grown very dependent on each other, and the closer I got to Evan, the further away I became from James. I stopped relying on him for emotional support. Evan was my go-to person for everything. He was the person I called when I was having a bad day or needed to talk to. We shared a strong emotional bond, and it seemed like he understood me better than anyone else. With James, our conversations became brief and infrequent. The warmth and connection we once had has faded. James noticed the change in me. I could see the confusion and pain in his eyes. But I pushed him away because I had convinced myself that Evan was the only one who truly cared about me. James, on the other hand, grew increasingly suspicious. He'd asked me where I was going, why I was coming home late, and who I was texting so much to cover my tracks. I would always lie and make up elaborate stories. The guilt was not directed at me, but I could not stop. The fear of losing Evan was actually greater than the fear of being caught. One evening, after another argument with James, I told Evan about how distant and strained my marriage had become. Evan listened patiently and assured me that everything would be fine. He told me that I deserved to be happy and that James, not me, had changed. His words were comforting, so I stuck with them and began using them to justify my actions. I suppose his words got into my head and convinced me the right thing. Our affair continued. We discovered new ways to spend time together. Always take care not to get caught. We would meet in parks, coffee shops, and even Evan's house when his wife was away. Despite the growing emotional schism, James never stopped attempting to save our marriage. He would set up date nights, surprise me with small gifts, and try to engage me in meaningful conversations. But I was too far into my relationship with Evan to appreciate his efforts. I'd go through the motions pretending to be interested, but my heart was not in it. James's suspicion grew, as did his desperation to save our marriage. He began checking my phone and questioning my every move. The trust between us had been completely broken, and the tension in our home was palpable, but I was too caught up in my emotions for Evan to see the harm I was doing. I also assumed James would never find out. After all, I did clear our chats on a regular basis every day. I would delete our texts, calls, and any evidence of our conversations. I was confident that as long as I covered my tracks, James would not have any proof, but I think I underestimated James's determination and growing suspicion. James became more vigilant. He noticed some minor details that I had overlooked. I always kept my phone close. The son smiles and chuckles at the messages I claimed were from friends, as well as the increased number of errands I needed to run. His attempts to discuss our relationship were met with defensiveness and irritation from me, which heightened his suspicions. One night, after yet another heated argument, James told me that he felt he was losing me and couldn't understand why I was so distant. I dismissed his concerns, telling him that he was being paranoid and overreacting, but deep down I knew he was correct. I could see the pain in his eyes, but I was too far gone to go back. Weeks went by and James's actions became increasingly desperate. He installed a tracking app on my phone, which I discovered. Much later, he started asking our friends if they had noticed anything unusual, attempting to piece together the puzzle. I should have known that my affair would eventually catch up with me because I was overconfident. I guess I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and when it did, it completely shattered my world. Part of the reason I felt so invincible was that I assumed James would never discover my infidelity. Looking back, I see that he was in denial, refusing to believe that I could betray him after all these years together. The day everything went down was especially stressful. I met Evan at our usual coffee shop, hoping to spend time together. We had planned to visit his house, but his wife was unexpectedly present,
So we had to settle for the coffee shop.
After a while, Evan had to leave to get his child from school. Unlike him, I didn't have that responsibility because James had promised me he'd handle it. That day relieved, I returned home expecting to see Alex. James dropped him off, but as I approached the door, my heart dropped. All of my belongings were piled up on the doorstep, I immediately fell to my knees. I knew the only plausible explanation for this was that he found out. Panic rushed through me like an electric shock. I got up and began knocking on the door, hoping against hope that someone would respond, but the house was clearly empty. Desperation set in and I dialed James's number several times. He initially ignored my calls, but persistence paid off and he eventually picked up. His voice was cold and distant and he confirmed what I had feared most. He knew about Evan and I. In that moment he dashed any hope I had. James informed me calmly that he was filing for divorce and that I would soon be served with papers. He told me he was done and there was nothing left to salvage. I began crying and pleading with him to reconsider, promised to do anything to save our marriage, including suggesting couple therapy, but his decision was final. He hung up without saying another word. I needed to gather my belongings and call my friendie. She was a friend who was always there for me. She helped me pack my belongings and drove me to my parents' house. I was filled with regret. I wish I hadn't gone to see Evan that day. I wish I'd been more careful. Perhaps I could have avoided the devastation. When I arrived at my parents' house, they were taken aback by my unexpected presence. I quickly revealed the entire story and they couldn't tame their disappointment. They allowed me to stay, which I appreciated. I was hoping all along that James would come around. Forgive me and we'll work things out. But as the days passed and he did not say anything, reality became more apparent. My parents did not sugarcoat it. They accused me outright. They tried talking to James and begged him to reconsider, but he refused. He interpreted my sudden concern for our marriage as phony, especially since I had been so distant for months. It's a tough situation. Read it. Do I accept that we are going to divorce? Is there a chance? James might forgive me. I'm posting here to vent and hopefully get some advice from anyone who has gone through something similar. Days have turned into weeks and I'm stuck in a limbo of regret and uncertainty. I'm replaying everything in my head, wishing I couldn't do it all. I'm really struggling with the consequences of my mistakes and I'm not sure where to go next or if there's any way to fix things. Update Reddit. Wow, the backlash. I suppose I should have seen this coming, given how obviously wrong I was. I came here for advice, not to be bombarded with insults and reminders of my mistakes. The DMs and messages have been brutal, with people questioning what I expected from my husband and making hurtful comments at me. It's been tough, but I'm getting used to it all. To answer the frequently asked questions, yes, I still see Alex. When it is my turn to have him, my parents assist me in picking them up and dropping them off at James's place because he refuses to see me. My parents have been supportive, even though it has been stressful for them. Fortunately, Alex is handling things fairly well. He has always been close to his father, so while he misses me, he is coping. As for Evan, many of you asked about him. Honestly, I haven't heard from him in a while. I've tried reaching out, texts, calls, but it seems like he's blocked me. Maybe his wife found out or he's just moved on. Whatever the reason, it's not my focus right now. I don't have a lawyer yet, but I'll be getting one. I'm also without a job as a stay-at-home mom. I plan to find one after the divorce proceedings are finalized. That is, if James doesn't forgive me. There isn't much of an update yet, but I'll share immediately if anything changes. Thank you for reading and providing advice on where you can improve. Hey, Reddit. I promise to provide an update if anything happened. So here I am. It's also interesting to see the hate train still moving. First and foremost, my parents and, thankfully, my mother-in-law have staged an intervention to assist me in communicating with my husband. You may wonder why my mother-in-law is helping me. She really likes me and I am her favorite daughter-in-law. She's also been through infidelity and was forgiven by my father-in-law. She believes in redemption and forgiveness. I'm grateful for her support. Still no word from Evan. I'm starting to worry, but I'm assuming his wife found out or something. It's disappointing and stings a little, but right now my priority is to work things out with my husband. So that's an update for those of you who mocked me and predicted my divorce. Hopefully, everything works out. Thank you for reading updates. Hello Reddit. It has been a while. Nearly a month. I'm sure some of you have noticed I've been hesitant to post because everything backfired on me. I came back here earlier to gloat, expecting things to work out, but they did not, and I've been too embarrassed to update you all. I'm sure I'll get laughed at, and a lot if I told you so. However, I realized that not posting here had a negative impact on my mental health. Despite the negativity and hatred ran on here allowed me to unload and calm down. A lot has happened, so let me get to the updates. First of all, my husband refused to listen. I expected an intervention to make him reconsider, but it did not. He barely spoke to us before kicking us out, and even told his mother that he'd be avoiding her because he supported his cheating wife me. So that totally blew up in our faces. My father-in-law was unaware of the intervention and became angry with my mother-in-law for supporting me. They are currently fighting, so I have also lost her support. Curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to contact Devin. I messaged him on Facebook, which was the only place he had not blocked me. He initially refused to respond, but eventually did. He informed me that his wife had found out about us. My husband had been the one to inform her. Evan said he was finished with me. He then asked me not to contact him again and immediately blocked me. Mystery solved, I suppose. On top of that, I've received divorce papers, so James is serious. I'm feeling numb and extremely sad. I cried. Clay didn't feel completely defeated. I don't know what to do anymore. Update. Hey Reddit. I'm just here, Vet. Screw my friends. I know they probably came across my posts and discovered I cheated. Apparently James had not informed them of what had happened, and when they connected the dots from my post, they bombarded me with calls and messages demanding to know how I could do such a thing. I needed to block them. Losing my friends hurts a lot, but if they're going to side with James over me, screw them. I'm sure they'll read this update, because they've already messaged me on Reddit, and I had to block them here as well. So to my so-called friends, if you're opening new accounts just to read this, forget about it. Update. Hey Reddit. This is me again, back with my final update. I mean, at this point, Reddit has been extremely helpful in allowing me to rant and unload, which has helped me relax. However, negativity has been overwhelming and has had a significant impact on me. It's been months since my last update and the divorce has been finalized. So I'm here to give you the full story, and this will most likely be my final update. First and foremost, I received nothing from the divorce because we had a prenuptial agreement. To be honest, I never mentioned it in my posts because I had forgotten about it, and I also believed James would not go through with the divorce. We'd been together for so long that it seemed irrelevant, and I was the one who suggested it. The prenuptial agreement was even tailored to my advantage, and I would have benefited greatly if I had not cheated. I was supposed to receive alimony because I had been a stay-at-home mom, but there was a clause that stated that if I cheated, I would not be entitled to it. I agreed to it because I never imagined I would cheat. The irony. I also did not receive custody of Alex because I did not own a home and lived with my parents, and I did not have a consistent source of income on the plus side. We had no debts to split, so we both walked away with the assets we brought into the marriage. The only thing that hurts me is losing custody, but I still have visitation rights, so that's fine. Life has been relatively slow for me. I still don't have many friends because, as I previously stated, they all chose James over me. In terms of employment, I have yet to find a suitable position, so I am currently working in my parents' restaurant. I am paid, so this is like a temporary job for me until I can find something more permanent. It's crazy how quickly time passes. I just wanted to give you an update and not leave you hanging. When James comes to pick up Alex or drop him off, We exchange pleasantries at best most of the time. I try to start conversations, but he refuses. It's fine. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. The important thing is that we have a positive co-parenting relationship. So yes, that is it. I apologize. There isn't anything particularly exciting happening in my life right now. My life is pretty boring. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.